Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today. Wasn't planning on making a video today, pretty busy, but I did have a comment on a video I made a couple days ago, the Estero Bay man-made island video from Aaron here, and he thought that a map I showed was of a different place besides Mound Key, and that's what makes this Ancient America series kind of challenging. Is there are places nearby each other that have the same names or similar like names. So I looked into this and I got it all figured out now, and I want to thank Aaron here for straightening me out. And this is not the first time this has happened. The people in these local areas that really have a handle on the history, they can correct me, because sometimes I only spend like an hour reading about this and making the video and then editing it and uploading it. And now when he first said I'm showing the wrong place, of course I said no, I think I know exactly what I'm doing here. But then I looked into it, and Aaron was exactly right, and I was wrong. And when you make, I don't know, maybe 1,300 history videos now, you're bound to screw up once in a while, and I appreciate it when people correct me, and I will always be honest and admit my mistake and correct it in a future video if I can. Now here is a diagram I used in my Mound Key video, and this matched up with the canal coming in and the ridges and where the mounds were. But this is actually a site called Big Mound Key in Port Charlotte Harbor, and that'll be the second site I feature. That little mistake takes nothing away from the importance of Mound Key here in Estero Bay. And I just want to mention this. I was planning on making the next video being a Q&A video. I've slowly started to put some clips together, and that'll be day 2, 3, 4 down the line. But so if you have any questions for me as far as a Q&A video, you can leave them on this video, because this one is I'm going to attempt to make this one a short one. There are two sites I want to talk about today, and I showed the Miami Circle on my last history video here in western Florida. These sites here are about the only places where there isn't development right on the harbor here. These places have been lost to time and history. This is the first one I want to talk about. This is called John Quiet Mound. This whole area today, pretty much deserted, undeveloped. Well, about 2,000 years ago, this is what it looked like. There was a main mound. There was like earthwork built up in the middle. And then it had all these ridges coming off. And they were of different size and shape, but they formed kind of arcs. And the best theory and the best answer, based on a lot of evidence, is these were ancient docks built of millions of seashells, and this main mound built of conch shells and clay packed together. Now this is lostworlds.org, and I will leave the link for the article and their YouTube channel. It says John Quiet Mounds are located across a small bay, Turtle Bay, east of Big Mound Key, and that's going to be the next site I talk about. And obviously I got that confused with just Mound Key from some diagrams. It says the John Quiet Mound complex consists of one large mound approximately 9 feet tall with steep sides and a flattened top 20 feet by 60 feet. And I imagine that is highly eroded. Maybe 9 feet is all that sticks up today above sand deposited on the island through centuries and centuries of storms. It says, like Big Mound Key, it has a series of semicircular ridges below the mound near Turtle Bay. The 1-foot-high ridges, 5 in all, are very reminiscent of those of Poverty Point, Louisiana. It is probable that structures were constructed atop these ridges. A hand-dug canal ran from the bay to the base of the large mound. Several other mounds with flattened tops exist throughout the site, which were probably the locations of more structures. It has been suggested that the canals existed between the semicircular ridges. This would allow the trading canoes to pull alongside the ridges, load up with cargo, and then set off on their journey. If true, this would make the John Quiet Mounds and the Big Mound Key the Native American equivalents of Venice, Italy? Well, maybe in a way. The Venetians also built their mercantile city-states on islands in the coastal marshlands where they could set off on trading expeditions around the Mediterranean, their version of the Gulf of Mexico. As is often the case, people around the world, separated by time and geography, hit upon similar solutions to shared problems. Coincidentally, Hernando de Soto brought glass trade beads manufactured in Venice when he landed in Charlotte Harbor to begin his expedition to explore the southeast in 1539. So I'm sure when Hernando de Soto pulled up in the 1530s here, this was a bustling center of the Calusa, who had their main capital just down the way in Estero Bay. But this place today, totally lost to time and history. Maybe 1,500 years ago, a bustling center of trade and commerce. Now here are the John Quiet Mounds right there on the right, and we're going to go down to Big Mound Key. And this is the place where I have the diagram confusion. But on that diagram that I showed, I think that's the way Mound Key used to be. As we kind of zoom in, you can see the faint outlines of a mound, and then the arcs going out this way. You can see them just faintly right here, and that is what I showed in my Mound Key video. But I think this is the way Mound Key down in Estero Bay used to look. Some of these ridges down at Mound Key in Estero Bay, they found older shells right under the surface, and then newer ones deep down. And that certainly suggests they were reworking the mounds at a different period or different periods of time. Now here in this black and white photo, you can perfectly make out where these arcs come out, and then this ancient little harbor in here, and then the big mound made out of shell and clay. Now the dating, it says the Big Mound Key is probably older. It says Big Mound Key, the older of the two Cape Hayes sites, was first inhabited beginning around 850 BC. The Poverty Point site in Louisiana dates from 1800 BC to 500 BC, placing Big Mound Key towards the end of that site's habitation period. It says Big Mound Key possibly started as a massive shell midden or trash pile built up over a long period of time by Indians discarding oyster shells and other shells from the food they ate. The site covers an area of approximately 37 acres. Later, several mounds were built within the midden that rise over 18 feet tall. These mounds had steep sides and intentionally flattened tops so the structure could be built on top. It is believed these structures would have been temples, administrative buildings, or communal structures. During a later period of the site's habitation, archaeologists have found evidence of shell tool manufacturing at the site. Whelk shells were converted into both cutting tools and hammers. This required highly skilled craftsmen who selected the appropriate size whelk shell and delicately cut holes in the proper locations for handle insertion. Evidence also shows that the diet of these craftsmen was different than the surrounding local population, suggesting they were of higher status. Now, in one of the few undeveloped areas of Florida coastline, there is these two ancient sites, a John Quiet Mound and the Big Mound Key as we call it today. And it says here, archaeologists have found trade items at Louisiana's Poverty Point that could only come from South Florida and vice versa. Similarity in site design strongly suggests that Big Mound Key and John Quiet Mounds were likely trading outposts established by the people of Poverty Point. But I think it's important to be thorough, go over all the sites, and a picture starts to develop. Poverty Point was obviously the center of the ancient U.S. about 4,000 years ago when it started. The riverways were the highways that connected great cities. There was earthen pyramids, earthworks, just about anything you can imagine. It was going on in the ancient United States. There was great cities, great cultures, and the story that we were fed about what came before the United States is a big pile of BS. Hope you thought this was interesting, and you all have a very nice day.